highly recommend the donuts.
Where
Oh,
was
dear.
this? On the drive,
Under IDA board.
IDA board. Okay.
Yeah, just dump it under there, because
Not sure if it
the
was
first one
on
was. Yeah, I didn't have a good place to put it because it's loans and pellets and everything.
the project list, right?
Does your business slow down for the winter or?
Yep, unfortunately.
You could buy all the construction on it. Island.
Just a, yeah, so I think we're good, yeah.
Yeah, whenever you're ready.
All right, 8:04. Meeting.
Energy, representing the Lion Solar Project, and we're in the middle of negotiations of the pilot terms and the pilot number, and he has yet to speak to our board, so we figured we'd give him that opportunity this morning. He's calling from North Carolina.
And just a background for you guys,
Smiley saying.
we had kind of pushed towards 4,000, 4,500 megawatt. Where we're landed right now is 3,750. And that seems to be something. Yeah, we can talk about it in the executive session. I don't know how to talk numbers. Why?
For community.
Yes.
Hi Bob, Cheyenne Stereo with the IDA, you're on speakerphone.
Yeah, no worries, how are you?
Good, how are you? You've got the IDA board here as well as a couple representatives from the county who have joined our meeting this morning.
Okay, thank you.
Morning.
Good morning.
You have privilege of the floor, Bob, and just to remind you, this is live streamed. I don't know how well the audio comes through, but it is live streamed.
Okay, thanks.
You can go ahead if you.
You there, Bob?
I am here.
Okay. Yeah, I think the board's just looking for kind of an introduction from you and kind of an update on the project from your point of view.
Oh, sure. Thanks, and thanks for including me this morning. Well, as everybody knows, it's a 15 megawatt solar project. I have all our permits in place, including the seeker negative declaration completed. I will say that the site plan review approval is conditioned on us providing the town detailed plans that are completely consistent with the zoning code. And the reason we did that is it's very expensive at this point in time to go to that level of detail on engineering plans when there's some uncertainty as to whether the project would get built. So they were big accommodators on that conditional approval. As Cheyenne knows, one of the very important energy credits into the NYSERDA auction. And as you folks probably realize, NYSERDA holds at least on an annual basis and sometimes twice a year an auction for all renewable projects that allows projects like this one to bid the RECs into the auction, and to the extent that you're competitive and can win. Those proceeds for this project contribute about 30% of the revenue. So it's a crucial piece for us to get done. We were unsuccessful in the last round. We'll keep bidding this project until we win. But I think it's important to point out that we did not win the last round, and so we're scrambling to find a way to be more competitive. In respect to the pilot agreement and the host community agreement, we think about those two numbers as a total, and that's sort of how we model, do the financial modeling for the project. In talking with the agreement, and so that piece, except for memorializing it and completing the paperwork around the host community agreement, is essentially done. But we really don't want to formalize the agreement in principle until we understand where we are with you folks on the pilot piece. So that's the 20,000.
Point of clarification, Bob, this is a 20 megawatt project, correct, not 15?
It's 15.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to revisit the application and cost benefit then.
Well, I think where the confusion might be is AC versus DC. I can walk you through that after the call. I don't have the application in front of me, but I think that might be what we're delivering into the grid is 15 megawatts.
Okay, we can talk about that more then.
Yeah.
This is Board Member Tom Gillette. Do you have a proposed construction date?
We have a placeholder construction date of just sort of approximately a couple of years out. But we don't have a hard date, and part of that date is going to be dependent on the availability of panels, and frankly getting the rest of these sort of commercial agreements in place. And it's dependent on us being successful with our survey. Once we check that box off, things will heat up significantly.
Any other questions for Bob?
I think, Bob, when we get into executive session today, we'll be speaking as, well, the board will be discussing the pilot amount.
Sure.
And where we go on negotiating with that. And hopefully we can get this to our finance committee this month.
You bet. Well, I'm available anytime for you to give me a shout, Cheyenne, and I can walk you through the AC versus DC values in respect to megawatts as well, if you want to have that conversation.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Bob.
Bye.
I have a stupid question.
Yes.
Is that something new AC/DC, they all been, lots of watt last time I checked?
No, there's the AC/DC thing, but usually they always speak in AC.
Okay.
So,
It's never come up before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I was thinking.
yeah, I just pulled up the application after he said 15 and, it says 20, but.
Does, huh? Yeah, it's round.
25% difference. How many acres is this project?
About 200. Actually, I sat on Joe signed up to a panel at Solar for Farmers, and I mean, the landowners are very, very excited about the prospect. He did give me some intelligence on what the lease being offered per acre was. Because I keep telling Duke, we need more, we need you to be a little bit more transparent so I can justify this, like, put something into the cost analysis, because, I mean, they never look good because you're balancing it versus an assessment that's ridiculous.
Is that 100% in Lewis County, or is
Yeah.
there's none
This
of
one's
it?
100%.
None of it's in the night.
And the township is very much pushing this one forward too.
What's the benefit for them showing a lower amount as far as wattage? Is there any?
Well, I think once they get to the 20 megawatt, that's the threshold.
No,
that
25.
Pushes it, 25.
Fine.
And so I don't know why that's
I mean, I can logistically understand that, what he's talking about, feeding the DC direct current into the grid and then goes out, but.
It may be a matter of the site, I mean, you know, they throw out 5 to 7 acres per megawatt. So if you do the math on that, 200 acres, but that's a parcel, and so it may have to do with setbacks or, you know, hedgerows where they may have to, there's all that kind of stuff that depends on the topography. Well,
What the,
Right.
what the,
yeah, it's,
what the project is
Yeah.
rated for.
it's typically,
that's what I
it's
need to look at, what our precedent has been.
it's typically gone off the application,
So it's rated,
so it's rated
Megawatts.
capacity.
which is typically how you build it.
Right, but,
It's kind of a big deal.
yeah, but if their application is off, then that they've had to, you know, I'm just wondering if they maybe intended on having that size and had to shrink it because of logistical issues and never up, I'm just.
I
not
took a
giving
look,
them the benefit
it
of
says
the
20
doubt.
megawatts DC,
Because
but
this
it's
is,
always been referred to as 20 megawatts.
Right,
And, so.
Then again, that also makes no sense, because if he's saying 15 is what they're putting into the system, DC, but they've listed 20 DC, right?
They've looked.
Because I could see the discrepancy if they're saying we're feeding 15 DC, but then it's 20 AC, fine, but if it's listed 20 DC, then it makes no sense to me.
Yeah.
Not to mention, you can't just get power out of nothing, right? Jared, like,
Well, it comes from the sun, but yeah.
you know, but like, you can't just,
No, I mean, that's the
Create
ACDC,
power.
there's a loss associated with the solution that you see on that, so that's some of the inefficiencies with the process block.
because this is such a large project, are there setbacks greater than some of the other ones?
it would still be up to the town because it's not an Article 10 process, so it would still be up to the town's zoning.
Right, so, I mean, typically we talk about how they have 3 kind of things that they need to get in line, they need to, well, 4. They need to get their site plan done, they need to get, obviously, their landowners lined up, and they need their financing, which the pilot is a part of the financing. And then the NYSERDA is another part of the financing for this project. So they've got the landowners all lined up, they've got their, everything through the town, there's full site process is done. So now it's just the pilot and the NYSERDA. And they've been really anxious to move this forward. But we haven't been pushing you very much on it because they lost their last NYSERDA bid, so it's not getting built until that happens anyway. And we are, do you want to revisit or do you want to just continue talking about this one?
I think we need to go back to the application.
Yeah. We can maybe, if you guys go into executive session, discuss numbers a little bit more and a little bit more of the details.
Yeah, because we can discuss the breakdown.
All right, so we'll move on from that, so, Brittany, your report.
Things during our agenda, but a couple others I wanted to talk about. We are hosting our third annual business after hours with the chamber on March 19th at Tugwell Vineyards from 5:30 to 7. We usually get 80 to 90 people in attendance, and it's just a nice night of networking and mingling with other professionals in Lewis County, so we'd love to have you all there. Wanted to touch on a couple of outside projects that we're working on with just various organizations and businesses. If, Joe, you attended the JCC study presentation. So JCC just announced their results. We are working on, I'm a board member of Hand in Hand, but also with economic development. Hand in Hand received a CFA grant this past year for an expansion. So we're trying to work creatively to figure out if an expansion is feasible. So that's an ongoing project of ours. That's extremely important, and I invited Ryan to our next board meeting. I do want to remind everyone that we do hold the mortgage on that building. So I understand that, outcome of executive director and if there is an expansion, that is a conflict of interest, so I would have to leave that forward, but I would still represent economic development within that project. And lastly, I wanted to just touch on the Article 10. So the Article 10 process historically essentially is the environmental review process for large renewable energy projects, and historically it has taken a long time to get through this process. So for example, number 3 wind has been in this Article 10. The process is broken, so they wanted to amend it, fix it, came out with new legislation a couple weeks ago. And if you've read the article, it definitely raised some concerns for us locally. Basically, long story short, the state would take over the siting process. So they would be looking at sites throughout the state and take care of the permitting. It did say that they would be looking at, old industrial sites and brownfield sites, but they would kind of take over that process, and that they would also kind of take over the pilot process. So that's the way that it sounded when you first read it. So of course, we're all like, oh no, this is not good. Our state membership, the New York State Economic Development Council, Dave Russo, and sent us a response that basically stated that IDAs in local jurisdictions would not be removed from the process. So they would still abide by local laws if they were in place, which is kind of a concern here because some towns and municipalities do have zoning in place, some do not. And that, we would still implement the pilot, companies are still able to pay that much, and they take that into consideration, don't take the side of the developer. So we're monitoring this process. I know the county's working on, figuring out if there's a way that the county can take a stand. And I've talked with other counties, they are also thinking about the same concept. So this is just something that we're monitoring, and we'll keep you all posted on what happens next. Any questions on that?
Taking away our ability to, set the terms of development and the taxes for development and location. I mean, that is a huge,
Right.
Stripping of our rights, but there hasn't been a lot of mobilization because we're all focused on Medicaid and all the other 20 things that they're trying to do to us this budget. So I don't know where, I haven't got my arms around it yet, but we probably should do something, a letter to the editor, a press release, or at least, Larry, we should try to call, Seth there, one of our governor's guys, and tell him, well, this is a huge deal.
Mhm.
I don't think we've done enough yet, personally.
Yeah, I still come back to, if we have an opportunity with from our standpoint to encourage development on certain qualities of land, that's still a better outcome than zoning or any, zoning these things out of existence.
And, yeah, and we are able to do that, we can just put it into our UTAC. They got confirmation about that from our attorney in Albany.
So this is something we did, so just as a reminder, we have our standard UTEP, which we generally just use but consider large scale like wind projects as a deviation from our standard UTEP. And then we develop a new tax policy or tax exemption policy related to small scale solar. So these are the under 5 megawatt projects that qualify for community solar. We have a separate written policy for that prime agricultural land as an alternative to a town just zoning and telling the landowner you can't use your land for this, which isn't going to be popular, right? So something that we talked about then, and then it kind of died down for a while, and then the project the conversation got reignited a few months ago, was if we structured our both our pilot terms and or our pilot fee to incentivize, gives the company an incentive and some financial capacity to use marginal lands, even if it's going to make the project cost a little bit more money, they would have that financial incentive to do it. The other thing, quite frankly, is it could prevent landowners from getting bullied, because we see examples quite frequently where the initial discussion is this can go wherever you want it on your land. The landowner picks how bad does the landowner want the lease and the revenue versus how bad does the company want the project. So again, if there was an incentive through our process to incentivize the use of that marginal land and where the landowner might be more apt to want it, it could be help prevent them from kind of getting bullied as well. So
We're gonna present some policy options to the board at our committee meetings in March. So kind of similar to Jefferson County, how their board of legislators picks, and the IDA kind of got in line with that, and the communities got in line with that. Well, maybe there's something that the board would consider, the board of legislators would consider for solar that would have a similar effect, where we say, you guys figure out the logistics and how it works from a tax perspective, but the board of legislators says, we don't support any project that covers more than 25% of a prime ag parcel, or, something like,
From the county, and I think we want to be on the same page.
yeah, definitely.
And so we have gotten legal guidance that we could insert that into our UTEP. So it brings up the discussion of modifying our UTEP for small scale solar, which we actually have an expiration date on that anyways, that we need to revisit it and reapprove it. And then the second thing is that does this warrant instead of the large scale projects just being a deviation of our standard UTEP, does this warrant an additional document, large scale projects? So we need to think about both of those things, but we have gotten clarification that we could use this structure to do this. That's not our money, that's the municipality's money that we're working with, so it has to be, is this a net benefit to everyone to make sure we encourage the use of the land this way.
Yeah, but in the long run, who wants to live next 3 generations?
I totally agree, so I think the net benefit is there of using this structure, and it doesn't necessarily take like small scale and incorporating this sort of mechanism into it, so.
Yeah.
I definitely support the concept because, to me, some of these small solar projects are going to make farms sustainable, where they maybe aren't right now. So, and if you use the poorer land, that's great.
Yeah. And so that's where, hopefully we can move and have some action on this. And quite frankly, I think, not that NYSERD is gonna listen to us necessarily so far are pretty strong. So there's no reason not to, I mean, you mentioned, reaching out or going public, but one of the things we could go public with is this success that we've had and what that has meant to our community in terms of, because there has been financial benefit. Why wouldn't this be part of your policy at the state
Yeah, that's a
level?
good point.
So I think we have an opportunity to do that as well.
Well, poster child for the solar tsunami. We're getting our doors beat down, on a daily basis by developers. And two, we kind of are already seeing.
This and anything we implement in UTEP, it's gonna take a few months.
The other thing I'd just like to say is everyone's getting really excited about this stuff, and certainly counties like ours are getting inundated with more applications. But if you do the math on what the state's goals right of land statewide, well, there's 62 counties in the state. So take out New York City and the Adirondacks and
Finger Lakes and anything that touches the
Well,
lakes.
no, actually, there's some huge projects in the Finger Lakes because they're not as, it's not viewed the same way. But, so anyway, so even say, take out 15 or 20 counties worth of land, and you're still left with only about 1,000 acres per county if it was distributed across the state, would meet the state's current initiatives. Not to say those initiatives won't increase in the future, and obviously that isn't gonna be evenly distributed, it's not gonna be 1,000 acres per county, but that's essentially what it comes down to. So if you put it in that perspective right now, it's not, it's not gonna have a huge impact. If it's done wrong, 500 acres done wrong could have an impact. 3,000 acres done right and the impact of it, and it is, they are pushing this hard in counties like ours, but in the whole scheme of things, it's actually not a huge number of acres if you break it down by how big the state is.
It's a good way to think about it, Jim.
Anyway, sorry.
No?
Okay. All right, so we have some correspondence on the agenda.
Yep, so I have a folder with a bunch of stuff that I'm just gonna pass around. We received a really, nice note from Max at the NNY Community Foundation, after he attended our business leaders breakfast. The local government conference, it's at the end of this month, it's hosted by the Tug Hill Commission. It's a really great, all-day event, just if you're interested in anything with local governments, there's a bunch of seminar sheet in here. If you would like to attend that, just write your name down and we will get you registered. After our last breakfast, I put out a survey just to get some response on the events in general, and I've never done that before. We received some really great responses, so I wanted to share those with you guys. And lastly, last week we did receive a FOIL request that we have initiated from 2001 and on, or 2010. 2000.
The minutes from the last meeting were sent out, last Friday, Thursday or Friday, but I shouldn't, everyone have a chance to review. Do we have a motion to accept them?
Yes.
Second, any discussion? All right, all in favor? Right. Motion passed. All right, also, just for your information, we're included the finance committee minutes. And then, the financials.
You'll see accounts receivable are a little bit high, and accounts payable are a little bit higher on the balance sheet. That's pilots filtering through. We've got probably 60% of our pilots, that get paid in and then we pay out, happen in the first couple months of the year. So you'll see that in January and then February and maybe a little bit residual in March. As those filter through, those two lines will be a little bit high. The other current liabilities line will remain higher than normal, as that Lions Falls, our commitment to the Lions Falls mill cleanup, that line of credit will stay open and that balance will accumulate in there until we receive, till we're ready to submit for our grant for the reimbursement of that. So that'll remain a little bit high for probably a year, at least until we get that refunded through the grant. The profit and loss, again, so don't be alarmed by $700,000 figures in those lines. We also received our engineering bill for this building from Fourth Coast finally, to the tune of $18,000. I think that's the last thing that we'll have to put under the Center for Business. So I'm hoping to have a reconciliation of this whole project done this month for the Finance Committee so we can get that just kind of put to bed where we fell out with that whole transaction. In the project expenses line, that's where you'll see Lions Falls stuff coming through now. And no other big ones. So she's having me send through some of these bigger transactions that we've done, so like the Harrisville project and Center for Business project. I'll kind of send those to her as one-offs so she can review those so that by the time we get to the audit, all the biggies are covered and it's just the day-to-day trans. Any questions, comments on financials? It was in the notes for the Finance Committee meeting to the Harrisville project. I did do the reconciliation on that and you can see kind of where we fell out on that. I think it was a very good project by the board.
Thank you. So we need a motion to approve the financial.
Sure.
Goggins, second. Jared, or any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed. All right, thank you. With the LCDC.
So historically, Eric has provided administration services to the LCDC. And that was between the LCDC and the county. The LCDC is looking to continue. Cheyenne will be doing most of the administration for that. And we've met with Larry is the chair of the LCDC board. So we have met with them to kind of talk about our future relationship with LCDC and just to get Darlene up to speed. It's the Lewis County Development Corporation. So as a development corporation, they can do certain things that kept it very vague. You know, Cheyenne has put in executive director in some spots and personnel kind of vague, and we'll just continue to see how the relationship evolves. But we need to essentially approve renewing this contract. We'll charge $50 an hour for our services to the LCDC.
Yeah, and obviously the LCDC has to approve this as well. So I think maybe the approval would be that we approve this with any extra minor changes or however you want to word that.
And so just the reason that we're looking at this now is because the county no longer has an economic development department. And we're charged with doing that on their behalf with our agreement with the county. So in essence, then that becomes, this was an agreement that LCDC had with the county.
In the Community Economic Development Fund, so as a part of the Duke project, a portion of that dollar amount would go towards this community fund. We do have we're working on getting a phone call set up with an attorney, with Hodgson Russ, who talked with Eric and Shai and Joe all last year and Larry about how we could develop this ordinance in Lewis County.
Is LCDC all set to go ahead with that if we get that stage or?
Stage of starting to get that created.
I would say it's a work in progress. There really isn't any model out there to follow at this point, so we're just gonna have to figure it out as we go along, basically.
But the outcomes of our meeting a few weeks ago was that to re-engage the attorney that had worked with us last year and continue down that road. So I would say, you know, there's still a lot of to figure out because it's a new template, but progress is.
That's what the IDA is gonna charge the LCDC.
Yes. Where is it?
Yeah, previously it was a little higher than that. And then I think it was based on Eric's total loaded, DC going forward is,
And, you
and
know,
what they expect and what we're providing, and just to make sure that's.
to Larry's point, there's what we should have contractually and what we should work towards, right? We want to be as flexible as possible. And so it is, you know, quite similar to what the previous agreement was.
I view it as a synergic partnership, you know, where we can shift the projects back and forth or divide them up as appropriate to move whatever that project is forward.
And we have staff, and I think it's fair to
We
say,
don't have any staff.
right, and you don't have any interest in having staff.
Well, I
so-
guess the only reason I brought it up is because for $50 an hour, if it legitimizes something for auditors, I understand. But for $50 an hour, I think it should just be an expectation that, you know, the county economic development, which is now housed with the IDA, you know, your staff is helping run all the tools of economic development we have. I don't know why we gotta be sending money back and forth and, you know, shipping each other bills, but that's, you know, between you guys. So.
So like you said, it's the AVO, it's the law firm that gets married again.
Well,
I think I completely agree, Ryan. I think it's just a balancing act of we're gonna be good partners on this, right? So we all want to be good partners on it. So are we looking to move this forward today?
Yes.
So there was a document included with what these proposed updates would be, and again, this will also have to be approved by the LCDC board. And I believe you guys have a meeting at the end of the month,
March 26th.
March 26th.
7 o'clock here, I believe.
So
Everyone's welcome to attend.
Which is the same day as the Tocqueville government conference.
so do we have any other
Julie's texting.
any discussion?
I'm sorry, this,
Tom made the motion to approve this contract. Ron, now do we wanna make it
contingent on LCDC's approval as well.
contingent on the LCDC's approval without any major changes?
What's the agreement?
It's basically the same agreement that we had before we changed the vote.
So no concern.
No concern.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Carries. All right,
Joe, are we being screened?
yeah.
Okay.
Moving on with the addition of a new board member, we have reshuffled our committees a little bit. So Brittany has an update on.
Yep.
Up on the screen.
We essentially just need to reappoint our committees. Governance, Jerry, Darlene, and Ron. Finance Committee, Tom, Jared, and Goggin. Audit Committee, Joe, Jared, and Tom. And then our loan committee, which consists of several community members outside of this board, as well as Goggin as our board rep. So we need to reappoint these committees, and I would also like to appoint a chair reporting on what was discussed during those meetings. It's something we haven't appointed chairs in the past, but it's something that we need to do as an IDA. Anyone have any interest? Jerry, Darlene, Ron, chair for governance? Ron?
I don't think that's something you should put everybody on the spot for right now, unless anybody wants to volunteer for it. I totally respect it.
Okay, perfect.
So
That's fine.
that means I can sit in the back of your truck on your way south, right?
Like, put a rocket chair in it.
There we go.
Anyone interested in finance?
I'm not either.
I mean, it's not much
You
more
wanna
of
do it,
a.
or-
I don't have time, I would love to.
Okay, put me down.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks. Audit committee, Jared. It's only, we meet once a year.
On the spot.
Let's see.
Fine. Don't expect me at the meeting, though.
And then Goggin, because you are the IDA board rep, if we ever have a loan committee
Okay.
meeting, would you be willing to? Okay.
And, you know, again, for Darlene or anyone else, so we have this loan fund that we manage.
Thank you.
And so we have this committee that would review applications and make a recommendation to our board. So we would ultimately still have to approve it, but we take the recommendation of the committee and you can see by the names that we try to have, you know, a good representation of the broader community on that.
Is that
committee.
how each time a loan
Yeah.
is requested?
All right, so what do we need to do to,
We should probably do them separately, separate motions to
to,
reappoint Jerry, Darlene, or to appoint Jerry, Darlene, and Ron on the governance committee, and Jerry as chair. I don't know if those have to be two.
so do we have a motion to Ron, second? Darlene, any discussion?
Thank
All in
you.
favor? Okay, all right, so we're kind of back on track now.
New York, which is a regional marketing initiative. And it is a partnership between ourselves, Jefferson County Economic, this regional marketing initiative. This is our brand new website and branding. And essentially in this region with a focus on Fort Drum as our economic engine. If you go all across the state and even all across the nation, there are regional economic development efforts who may have one staff member or have 50 staff members. And these organizations, they really. So we have been in partnership since 2007 with Drum Country. We commit $5,000 each year to this partnership. Each county commits $5,000, which in turn is matched by National Grid. And for us, we've hired consultants to do, it was a big cold call initiative to companies that would make sense and fit in our region. And actually Ox Industries, who purchased this building, came out of that initiative. So that was a win for Drum Country. So I am asking to make a motion at $5,000 each year to this partnership.
So I two things. So this is, we have voted on an annual renewal of the funds every year, but this is up for the actual 3 years on the contract. And then another, one thing that is in here is, again, this actually was structured as an agreement with the county economic development in the past. So I do think we need to update a few things, like it talks about Lewis County Office of Economic Development.
Yeah, I do notice that.
And then the signature line on the third page is Lewis County Office of Economic Development. So I think we need to update that a little bit, but again, it's been, we as a board, we've taken action on this each year. It's just that every third year it comes up for this, more formal part. So.
And it always came out of our 30,000 marketing budget.
Okay, so
So this
Yes.
yeah.
is our sub budget that we've been trying to put together.
Are you spending much time at this, or is this just a contribution to their organization?
It's a contribution. Michelle Capone would think, takes the lead on some of these initiatives. We do have, I don't know, last week, and we discussed, how can we use Drum Country for talent attraction? So we're looking at, various consultants that can just help us, market Drum Country, launch our website, launch social media, things like that.
And this is the program that you have for the past 2 years gone to the area development for.
Yeah, so the area development conference that I have attended in Miami and Houston, Drum Country, I go representing Drum Country, and they pay for that.
So, I think so I think on a principal level, these kind of partnerships are a good thing to do. But we are committing $5,000, so we probably have a work plan for 2020.
Yep.
Deliverables would be listed there, and the request would be maybe.
Yeah, that's definitely something that we've never reported on this quarterly, but absolutely. We should do that.
Adjustments are made, then it can just be executed, so you're not having to wait.
Okay.
So if we had a motion to have, with, contingent on Kevin's review and
I'll second.
Jared's second, all in favor? Oh, sorry, I didn't ask for this. I need it? All right. Everyone's good.
Didn't need it.
Okay, so that wasn't on the agenda, but, Brittany had mentioned to me yesterday that had just come up. All right, so now we're moving on to some updates in terms of, some, ongoing work.
Yep, so wanted to give you all an update on, debt recapture with a couple of businesses. We'll start with his take on what the value is on that equipment. As IDA, we want some sort of legitimate assessed value on this equipment and things like that. So he was in Tahoe skiing, so he was gonna get back in touch with us when he got back. We have looked at the equipment. Cheyenne and Tim have both taken a look at it. It looks to be in good working order. And also, Skew Brewing might be interested in some of the pieces of equipment.
So surprisingly, Dean gave us a key to where the equipment is stored, so we now have access, so we can get the assessment done. Kind of as I dug into restrictions around procuring it, but we do have a fair amount of restriction around how we go about selling it. So we do need to have that evaluation.
I'm trying to recapture the lease payments from NRG, from when they were not paying us, when they were leasing space from us in this building. And Kevin, I don't know if you want to give a brief update on that and where you're at.
They've been served with the papers. Their time to answer is almost expired. I believe a couple, maybe Berklers is ahead of us, but they've already done that. They served them the same way, and they actually already have a judgment against them. I found that in the county clerk's office just recently. So we'll be filing a judgment against them and see if we can chase that down. I'll talk to you more about what the possibilities are, but they have assets all over the country, nothing much here in Lewis County anymore, but we will have a judgment against them.
Thank you.
Anything in like Arizona or somewhere warm?
You're a native, let's go.
Can I ask a question on the first item?
Yes.
Well, I guess, what are we talking about? About that in open session, or is that more of an executive session thing?
It's litigation. I mean, you can certainly go into executive.
The bar meter.
Dean Richards is the sole responsible party there.
Are there partners or associates?
There was a silent, there are silent, I don't know what the current status is, there were silent partners.
Being, as the only member in it, there were investors in it. And those investors did not have any management authority or anything like that.
Dean also signed personally, I believe.
Yes, I don't know who all the silent partners were, I wasn't part of the investment, but I just know the setup, I don't think I even have information as to who they all were, I know one of them, but.
Source on.
So Mark Peter has dealt with us in regards to our revolving loan fund that we manage through USDA location.
The total is approximately $20,000, right?
Yeah,
So are payments being made?
No,
no.
and they haven't.
No, that's why we're in this
They haven't
process.
paid.
So he walked away from that, that's why we have Skewed. So Skewed Brewing is now, took over that facility to brew in after Dean walked away from it, or Mark Peter walked away from it, so
That
now,
was the group that purchased.
this is now essentially a defunct business that is not in operation, that we're now looking at, and I think,
The lease
That's
portion.
right, okay.
and then he has equipment assets from the original brewery that,
If I could ask, so the revenue coming in from Skewed, maybe subletting the business, does that offset?
we own the building, we own the equipment, we're leasing it all to Barkeeter. They ceased operation and went a small operation in the mall and wanted to expand. So they were interested and
So
they
it's
came
two
in
separate.
and we have essentially a lease agreement with them on the building and the equipment that was a similar agreement as to what we had with Barkeeters, but there's a gap in between. The gap is when Barkeeters was still technically the tenant and stopped making payments. That's the gap. Once Skewed took over, they began making payments and are operating the facility.
So do you think we will capture the past reasons?
I think if the board chooses after we get evaluation of the equipment, if the board chooses to move forward on accepting that, we'll have to determine if we can accept that in forgiveness of X number of dollars towards his debt. I don't think it's the total amount. But that'll be up to the board to decide.
I have one other question, but I think that one I want to bring in executive session. So will we have other executive session items?
Yes.
Before we-
Yeah, we've got.
So I will, if we could circle back.
All right, thank you. Compliance,
Yeah, so just a brief update on compliance. We did receive feedback from Melissa Bennett at Barclay Damon in regards to our bylaws and our UTEP policy. Lots of comments and a lot of item at governance committee. The one thing with our UTEP policy is that before we can, re-adopt that policy, we do have to send it out to each taxing jurisdiction for comment. So that will take at least a month or two to get re-adopted. That's all I have for that.
okay. Cheyenne, just, yeah,
Yeah. The annual acknowledgement of fiduciary duty. Thank you for everyone who's gotten them back. I think you know what it is, because you were in the last meeting this year.
so this is something we need to do on a yearly basis, you can look at it in the
Yeah,
meantime.
that also has a short, section on conflict of interest.
Alright, properties,
Yes, so another update on some properties in regards to line sale residential home. Kevin is continuing to work with that gentleman to sell it back to them. He did stop in yesterday and was very grateful for all that we've done to make sure that that process went through. Any updates from you on that?
He's paid his rent for March.
Yes, yep.
So, and we should be closing this month, but the complicated issue has been that he keeps changing how he wants to take title. He has 3 children.
Hello.
and Sometimes he likes one of them, sometimes he likes all 3. So, but we haven't ready to go except for Ray's got to pick which kids to go with. He wants to have the deed with them is what it is.
Our lease for this building expires in October. We have not gone back to Ox to see if maybe they would be willing to extend that lease with us. Price on that yet. I know that they were working on selling the house first, and then they would kind of get to the commercial building.
Excuse me,
Yes.
where is that located?
That is
Across,
right next, you know where North
Across the
Country
road,
States is?
theater.
Wait a minute, one of you want.
Okay, Shady Ave in Loveland.
Yeah.
Across from the movie theater.
Yeah.
It's that last brick building next to the driveway
Okay.
where you can park out back.
across the street from Gary's.
The Outfitters building, he was kind of pressuring us a little bit if we've made any decisions. So we went there about a month ago, and we do have a tour set up for after this meeting. If anyone's interested, I know some of you do plan on attending. That is a really awesome building, really unique building, has a lot of potential, you know, in regards to downtown revitalization. Can we partner with other county agencies or organizations within the community to fill that space? Again, it's just an opportunity that we should definitely look into. Their asking price at this point is $35,000.
So, Brittany, I don't think you and I got a chance to talk in depth about this, but just a quick note for you and the board. Snowbelt Housing has that building now and has tried.
Right, Snowball has an option.
Right, what's that?
Be a good place to lock you up.
Well, if you're looking for one.
We'll give you your own office and stuff.
I think the sheriff has some ideas about where you're going.
Yeah, that's pretty colorful. I don't know where to go there.
Yeah, so their asking price right now is $35,000. They have sent us like their phase 1, phase 2 reports. They did an asbestos survey and lead survey like in 2012. You know, they spent approximately $15,000 in doing that. But the quote for that, and I also sit on that committee, just trying to think creatively to how can we partner with the county in some way. And even if it's literally just together, kind of an analysis of all of the buildings that we were looking at. And I think after today, once we take a tour with the board, we'll review that analysis and add in the old jail and see, you know, how viable and it could be. But again, just wanted to circle back.
Down from Ox, just as a fallback, if they'd be interested in renewing it somehow.
Yes.
If it came to
Yeah.
that, be nice to have just in case.
Absolutely.
Well, we have to think about the chamber as well. I mean, obviously, they could make their decision to do their own thing, but essentially, you know, whatever we do if they follow suit, we have to be a bit cognizant of that. And if we need a temporary space, it's not ideal for either organization, but probably less so for the chamber than us. So.
And we are very interested in moving.
Their interest in knowing what the future is getting ratcheted up as we get closer to the end of the leases here.
Any other questions? So I think I have Darlene, Ryan, Joe that are attending the tour.
I'm gonna go down right in and be right.
Okay.
Can you have add-ons?
What's that?
I said, can you have add-ons?
Yeah, absolutely.
Any other updates besides the negotiations that we would want to talk about in the executive session?
No, I think it's just the negotiations. And
I think on the Duke thing, we should push to get the communities thing in line at least.
yeah,
before
no,
this
that's
happens.
been part of the conversation. So, so last Wednesday, our interview committee conducted phone interviews with 3 applicants for the executive director job. And again, you know, we would like to use executive session to talk, and then a personnel update regarding the interview So do we,
Those are all three legitimate issues for executive